Am I disappointed? Yes. Am I surprised? No, not at all. I'm not surprised in any way, shape or form. It was always cope, wasn't it? The opportunity for an 11th team on the grid in Formula One. That was an exciting one, but it's not to be. Andretti have been rejected by Formula One's commercial rights holder, Liberty Media, F1, FOM, blah, 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 all that. They've said no, which means no Andretti. Earliest, by the looks of it, is going to be 2028. And that's more hanging on the GM Cadillac engine deal, that getting across the line. So we talked about this like 2 days ago, and we're talking about it again because they've said no. And in that video a couple of days ago, it was very much, we saw the article from The Athletic, from Luke Smith, showing pictures of a wind tunnel model in Cologne at the Toyota wind tunnel that McLaren used to use, a team of 150 staff built at Otmar Safnauer. We saw some chat from him yesterday, talking about the potential for him to join the operation at some point once it gets over the line. And Otmar said, I'm not getting involved until it gets signed off. It's not been signed off. F1 have released a statement. Let's go for it. The presence of an 11th team would not on its own provide value to the championship. The most significant way in which a new entrant would bring value is by being competitive. Okay, so point one. Now, for a team to not be able to come in and be competitive, of the clout of Andretti in terms of their motorsport portfolio across numerous disciplines, it's not only IndyCar, is it, right? They're in Formula E as well. They do Extreme E. They do endurance, I think, as well. Andretti, wherever they go, they do well, okay? They're clearly very operationally sound when it comes to building a racing car and going racing, whatever that discipline may be. Now, there's an assumption here that the car won't be competitive. I would argue, if this was a 2026 entrant with a Renault customer engine, which is the engine that's being talked about, why not? Why wouldn't they be competitive? Just answer me this, F1, okay? You've got Haas, and again, we've been dogpiling on Haas a lot recently because it's very easy to do so because they've given us a lot of ammunition. Ultimately, they've not given fans much to be excited about. Yet that is a car that can still get into Q3 8 times with Nico, 6 times with Kevin. By 2026, and looking at the convergence, this is the thing, right? These new regulations, this new regulation cycle, it's not so new anymore. We've had 2 full seasons with it. I don't see why by 2026, when the regulations will change again, but nowhere near as dramatically as they changed from 21 to 22, an evolution of these regulations. I mean, looking at Andretti's setup, again, relative to a Haas, why not? I mean, Haas came in 2016, pre-budget cap, and they had their, relationship with Ferrari, which obviously helped. And within their second season, they finished like 5th in the constructors or whatever it was. In this budget cap era, that first paragraph here, the presence of an 11th team would not on its own provide value to the championship. Most significant way in which a new entrant would bring value is by being competitive. This is the most competitive Formula One we've seen ever. And before you jump down my throat, yes, obviously Max dominated, right? But front to back, remember in my quiz, right? Top 15, Abu Dhabi Q1 was split by 0.440. 440. Now, I know, of course, qualifying pace and race pace are not 2 of the same, hence why the Haas can start well and falls back. But from what we've seen, especially given this article we saw from Luke Smith from The Athletic, why not? By 2026? Like, we've got all of 2024, all of 2025, they jump in 2026. Why can't they be competitive? I see no reason. I see zero reason. You're giving them even more time. Again, they've been pushing for a 2025 entrance. And if you think that's too soon, as in next season, Fair enough. Fair enough. So let them in for 26. There's a regulation refresh that's going to give everyone an opportunity. Let them get eyeballs on those new regulations at the same time as everyone else does. Those adjusted regulations with, you know, more done to reduce dirty air. You know, the new power units, of course, as well. Like, there's just as much chance. I'm not being funny. With all these new PUs coming in for 2026, I mean, Red Bull, they're developing their own engine. They could completely drop the... Any of them could drop the bomb. Honda could come with an absolute dud for Aston Martin, and they could be miles off at the back. Like, that hybrid generation when Mercedes were dominating, it wasn't because their chassis was a mile better than Red Bull's. It was because their power unit was a mile better than Red Bull's Renault, you know? I think that's a very presumptuous point to make, and I don't agree with it. I really don't. That first paragraph straight at the back, I'm not having it, okay? I'm not keen. Next, we do not believe that the applicant would be a competitive participant. We just made the same point again. While the Andretti name carries some recognition for F1 fans, our research indicates that F1 would bring value to the Andretti brand rather than the other way round. That is so bitchy. That is honestly the sass behind this point. This is Stefano trying to annoy Michael Andretti, because Michael Andretti has not gone about this in the best way. I think that is fair to say. He's ruffled a lot of feathers. He's bruised a lot of egos with the points that he's made. I don't think he's wrong. But if you want to get into the club, then you don't scream and shout at the security on the door, even if security is being a knobhead. You have to play the game, okay? And Michael's not played the game. And for them to say, I mean, tell me this, right? How many brands out there would bring more value to F1 than F1 would bring to them? Because if we're saying that that's a make or break, that is severely underestimating, I think, the significance of Andretti in the States, not just in Formula One, but in numerous other disciplines as well. Again, IndyCar is a prime example. I feel like having Andretti, an established top IndyCar team, come into F1 is only going to help convert some of those IndyCar fans who maybe still don't look on F1 particularly favourably, and bring them over to our side so that they can enjoy both. Because I love F1, I love IndyCar, right? This is a muggy thing to say. Honestly, this is some like Love Island round the fire pit bombs being dropped here. We do not believe the Andretti name carries enough brand value, essentially. Our research indicates that F1 would bring value to the Andretti brand rather than the other way around. But surely both can be true. It's not like bringing Andretti in gives no value to F1. And sure, would F1 bring more value to Andretti? Yeah, it would. Like, both can be true. Both could be true. Like, surely everyone wins. This is the thing, right? The fans are calling for an 11th team. It's 2 more seats for 2 more exciting new drivers, right, to get him into F1. Andretti gets value, F1 gets value. Of course it does. Come on now. Just, we'll bring more value to you, so no, go away. So point 2, I don't agree with that either, all right? Okay, so that's 0 out of 2, F1. Right, very disappointing so far. Let's see if you can make it up for the next one. On the basis of the application as it stands, we do not believe that the applicant has shown that it would add value to the championship. Look, that's just another way of saying the first 2 points. You've not really added anything there, F1. Value. Value is a very subjective word. It's a very ambiguous word. What do you mean by value? I knew they'd pull this. This is the thing. We all knew, didn't we? We all knew F1 would be like, nah. And look, is this part of a broader disagreement, for want of a better term, between the FIA and Formula One, the commercial rights holder of F1, which actually belongs to the FIA, and then they let the commercial rights out. Liberty Media have those commercial rights right now. Is this part of a broader power dynamic between the two? That 100% plays a part. But they're forgetting one key, the most important factor, which is us, the fans. They're so busy kind of disagreeing and tripping over each other and trying to get little digs in. And I think this is F1's way of saying, no, you know what, Ben Sulayem, FIA, you might have said yes to Andretti, but we're saying no. Little power play there. And it's a shame. It is a shame because I think there's very little to lose from bringing Andretti in. I think the whole point of these new regulations and the cost cap is to make F1 more accessible. And they've literally teamed up with GM, like one of the biggest automotive organizations in the world. This is bollocks. This is absolute bollocks. I'm sorry. I've not properly read these statements before we're going through them now, and I think this is absolute bollocks. We would look differently on an application for the entry of a team into the 2028 championship with a GM power unit, either as a GM works team or as a GM customer team, designing all allowable components in-house. Now, the reason they put 2028 here is because GM have made a pledge to become an engine provider, but not from 2026. They've not got any work done on it, like relative to the other teams. So if they joined in 2026 with a GM power unit, it would be way underdeveloped. So they're saying, as in GM have said, we'll get on board from 2028, and that must be what this is to. F1 are only interested in an Andretti bid if they are also bringing a Cadillac, GM, whatever you want to call it, a power unit with it, not with a customer Renault engine, which is what it seems that car will have. Now, obviously, partnering with Renault isn't the most confident engine provider, let's just say that. Although I would say, and again, we don't know because Alpine only run the Renault power unit, no one else does. We don't actually know how good, like what's the difference, right? Because the Alpine, we know they're not a top 5 team, we know they're not a bottom 4 team, they're just kind of on their own. How much of their performance is chassis derivative or engine derivative? But if Andretti had partnered with, say, Honda, who are joining with Aston Martin, although I reckon that's an exclusive deal and that's part of why Aston signed with them. But even like a Mercedes or a Ferrari, Andretti Ferrari would have been, Italian heritage name, Andretti Ferrari, boom, that would have been cool. And maybe that would have given their application a bit more confidence. But do I think that would have actually made the difference? No, it's not like the Alpine. I mean, Pierre got a podium, Esteban got a podium, Pierre also got a sprint podium last year. So it's not like that car was completely strong. Like, I reckon the power units right now in this current generation, this current formula of power units are all pretty similar. Not like the Mercedes being an absolute tank back in the day. So I don't think that would have made too much of a difference. And look, I can understand that makes an entry more appealing to Formula One, having an engine provider directly connected to it. But to use that as justification to disregard Andretti's entry, for me, is very short-sighted. Because, of course, the elephant in the room is we're seeing Haas, all right? We're seeing this team get massively underfunded by Gene Haas. He doesn't want to put his hand in his pocket, which is why I'm suggesting, he needs to bring in more sponsors if he doesn't want to. Ultimately, he owns that team. He's entitled to do whatever he wants with that entity to an extent anyway. I do wonder if there's any kind of, in their contracts, that teams can get kicked out and that entry could be given to someone else. Because I said this a couple of days ago, I feel like what we're seeing from Andretti already is a much more serious bid than what Haas put together. Because sure, having this 3 different base model, it worked for Haas and leaning so heavily on Ferrari at the start. It worked for Haas at the start. Now they seem to be falling behind. This is a new generation of Formula One. Team principals are all ex-engineers. There's a different approach needed in this cost cap generation, but also this cost cap does inherently make the sport more accessible. So Surely this is a negative indictment on the cost cap, no? Because look, I believe the cost cap is the right thing, and I think it's getting there. I think it's getting there. You look at the field spread, qualifying pace, 1 lap pace field spread is closer than it's ever been. But to say so confidently that we do not believe that the applicant would be a competitive participant, even by 2026, which is a whole 2 years from now, that is the most scathing indictment of the cost cap that they could possibly make, surely. Because isn't the point of the cost cap that everyone can converge? Like, it's gonna spread the field out in 2026 anyway. You know, because that's what happens when regulations change. Some teams nail it, some teams fall behind. In 2025, it should be super competitive. You know, in the same way 2021 was super competitive. This stinks. This absolutely honks. F1, I'm disappointed. I'm not surprised, but I'm disappointed. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. I'm not happy. Let's talk about it. My name's Tommo. Thanks again. Have a good one.